He seemed like the perfect guy. Rich, classy, untouchable. The kind of man who walks into a room and the whole place goes silent. Not because he asked for it, but because something about him just makes you feel like you have to. Behind that calm smile was a monster. Someone who'd been building an empire since he was 10. A boy stolen from everything he knew, forged in the cruelest possible environment, and aimed at the world like a weapon. She was the only person strong enough to stop him. A girl who could halt a speeding plane with her bare hands. The one threat he never saw coming. It's 2013, and somewhere in the Mongolian countryside, a little girl named Chektseg just beat a grown man in a wrestling ring. She didn't struggle. She didn't strain. She just won. The way you win when the outcome was never really in question. Back in Seoul, a man named Gang Bong-go is sitting with a journalist trying to explain how he lost his daughter. She was 5 or 6 years old. He took her to Mongolia because he saw something extraordinary in her, and somehow, in the chaos of it all, she slipped away. Her mother, Hwang Gum-ju, has been running a strength competition for years, hoping to find her. Every year, young women from across the country show up, and every year, none of them are quite right. The girl who is Chektseg is also the girl who used to be Nam-soon. She doesn't know that yet, not fully, but she's been putting pieces together. A flash of light from a camera that reminded her of family photos. A tag on old clothes that said Korea. A Korean television show that unlocked something buried deep in her memory. She decided to learn Korean, earn money, and go find the people she came from. She has been working toward this her whole life. By the time we meet her as an adult, she is ready. And on the same flight that carries her back to Korea, seated in first class with the calm of someone who has never had to worry about anything, is Ryu Shi-oh. They don't speak, they don't need to. The plane lands, or tries to. Something goes wrong. The brakes fail. The aircraft is barreling down the runway with no sign of slowing, and on board there's a full passenger manifest of people about to have the worst day of their lives. Nam soon gets off the plane. Then she runs. She runs with a speed that doesn't make sense for a human body. Catches the landing gear with her bare hands and drags the entire aircraft to a stop. On the plane, something happens to her mother and grandmother at the exact same moment. A pulse of energy moving through all 3 women at once, ancient and physical and impossible to explain. The women in this family can feel each other, across any distance, across any danger. They're connected in a way that science hasn't named yet. Ryu Shi-oh watches from the tarmac. His expression doesn't show fear. It doesn't show shock. It shows interest. Now, before we go any further, you need to understand what Ryu Shi-oh actually is. Not what he looks like, not what he says in meetings, what he actually is. He runs a company called Dugo. On paper, it's a logistics firm. In reality, it's a distribution network for a synthetic drug so dangerous that a single exposure can rewrite a person's behavior, push their strength to superhuman levels, and then quietly destroy their organs from the inside. The drug activates when it contacts water. The person taking it doesn't know they're taking it. They think they're using a face mask, an energy drink, a diet pill, a jacket lining. By the time they find out the truth, they're already hooked. The only antidote comes from the blood of sea hares, rare marine creatures whose entire supply Ryu Shi-oh controls. He isn't just distributing the drug, he's cornering the market on survival itself. Manufacture the disease, own the cure, that's the business model. And he's been taking the drug himself. The blue liquid he drinks between meetings is the antidote keeping him alive. His veins pulse blue when it moves through his system. He's done the math on his own mortality and decided the strength is worth the cost. There's a lab tucked in the mountains where the drug is tested and refined with each iteration. A scientist works there in the kind of silence that comes from knowing too much about what he's building. The vials on the shelf are all labeled. The sea hares swim in tanks. This is who Ryu Shi-oh is. A man who turned his own body into a test case for a product he sells to people who never agreed to buy it. Every boardroom smile, every measured word, all of it wrapped around something that's been hollowed out and refilled with something colder and pulling strings from even further away. There's a Russian criminal organization called Pavel. Ryu Shi-oh didn't choose Pavel. Pavel chose him. As a child, he was one of many orphan boys stolen from around the world and brought into the system. They were made to fight each other for food. The boy who lost went hungry, and the boy who won went on to become something Pavel could use. And Shi-oh won. He kept winning, and somewhere along the way, the boy named Anton, the name he had before they took everything from him, stopped existing. What Pavel built in his place was the man standing in front of you now. There was one boy he trusted inside all of that, a boy named Bin Bin, who fell during an escape attempt in the dark woods and told Anton to keep running without him. Anton reached back, pulled him up, and said they would get their revenge together. He meant it. He is still meaning it all these years later, But revenge looks different when everything soft inside you has been burned out or turned into a tool. Back in Seoul, Nam-soon is navigating a very different kind of chaos. She got scammed on her very first day she arrived, lost her apartment money, her phone, her passport. Rather than fall apart, she finds a spot near the Han River, gathers materials from around the park, and builds herself a shelter from scratch. A Mongolian jur right in the middle of Seoul. And she moves in as if it's the most natural thing in the world. The policeman who ends up crossing her path is named Hee-sik. He's part of a secret task force investigating a spike in drug-related deaths across Gangnam. He's also, at this point in the story, completely unprepared for what it means to be near someone like Nam-soon. She can see him dancing in his apartment from across the street, using her super sight. She watches for a while before deciding to mention it. His reaction when she does is the kind of thing you don't recover from quickly. But Hee-sik is sharp even when he is mortified. He notices things other people walk past. A woman died from a drug-related incident with no trace of anything in her bloodstream. A tip about narcotics on Nam-soon's flight turned out to be misdirected rather than wrong. A face mask taken as evidence starts dissolving when it contacts something wet on his skin. That's when it hits him. The drug doesn't show up in blood tests. It activates in water. That's the mechanism Shi-oh built. Subtle, nearly invisible, and by the time anyone figures out how it works, it's already moved through Gangnam in a dozen different forms. Meanwhile, Nam-soon finds her family in the most chaotic way possible. She hears cries from a burning building before she ever makes it home. She goes straight in and starts pulling children out of windows. Her mother Gumju, who was outside moving cars so fire trucks could pass, climbs inside. They meet face to face in the smoke for the first time. Gumju reaches for her daughter. A burst of fire blasts Nam-soon out through the window. Gumju leaps off the ladder and catches her mid-air. That's the family Nam-soon comes from. Now, here's the thing about Ryu Shi-oh that makes him genuinely chilling to watch. He isn't reckless. Every move he makes is a calculation. Every conversation is a negotiation with an exit already mapped. Every relationship is an asset he's either building or preparing to liquidate. He doesn't raise his voice in boardrooms. He doesn't lose his composure in public. He smiles warmly at people he has already decided to destroy, and the warmth looks completely real because he has spent decades making it look that way. He already knows about Nam-soon before they officially meet. He saw her stop the plane. He had his people film her working in a Dugo warehouse. He has been searching for a woman with exactly that kind of strength, someone who can handle a dangerous job without flinching. So when she gets called into the CEO's office over allegedly stealing warehouse goods, Shi-oh doesn't fire her. He recruits her. He gives her a new position on his corporate relations team. He tests her with an industrial press powerful enough to crush a car, watches her stop it cold, throw it across the room, and land cleanly on the elevated platform right beside him. He smiles, and here's what'll make your skin crawl. He is charming, genuinely charming. He sings along to songs in the car like a man without a single secret. He takes her to a Mongolian restaurant because he wants her to feel at home and watches every micro expression on her face while she eats. He tells her about being an orphan, about growing up in Russia, in a voice that sounds exactly like a man finally letting someone in. And underneath every single word, he's running calculations. Nam-soon as an asset, as a weapon, as leverage against her family the moment it becomes useful. He wants to know her secret. He's waiting for her to trust him. She's doing the exact same thing to him. She is filming everything on a camera hidden in her watch, feeding footage to Hee-sik in real time. She's faking warmth while he fakes openness, and neither of them is wrong about the other. They are just each trying to get there first. And Hee-sik, watching all of it through a tiny screen while parked outside. He is doing his absolute best not to show that watching Shi-oh adjust her coat collar is the most irritating thing that has happened to him in years. It started with small things. Listening to her mutter in Mongolian, words he couldn't understand. And finally, the night she accidentally kissed him, the moment they both immediately decided hadn't happened. Somewhere in those moments, he stopped being just her contact on the outside. She knows it. He knows she knows it. Neither of them has said it yet, but it's there in every phone call, every worried glance at the watch camera feed, every time he turns his car around to follow her. Somewhere she told him not to go. Two people on the same side, lying to a man who is lying to both of them, while quietly coming undone every time they end up in the same room. And right around here, we keep circling back to a question worth sitting with. What does it actually take to become someone like Ryu Shi-oh? Not the network, not the operation, but the coldness, the ability to look at a human being and calculate their value without flinching. He didn't start that way. The flashbacks make that clear. The boy named Anton who reached back for his friend in the dark, that was real. The loyalty was real. Pavel did not just use him, it rebuilt him from the inside, took everything soft and either destroyed it or turned it into ammunition. So here's the question. Is Ryu Shi-oh a monster who deserves every single thing that is coming to him? Or is he a victim of a system that destroyed him before he was old enough to choose anything for himself? Because this story wants you to hold both of those things at the same time, and it is not wrong to feel them both. Now, Gum-ju has been running her own war this entire time, and she isn't subtle about it. She is extraordinarily rich, and she uses that wealth the way other people use weapons. She donates to a philanthropic organization called Opulentia to gain access to their intelligence network. She is tracking a money launderer named Breadsong, who helps Gangnam's wealthiest women hide their fortunes in shell corporations using the identities of homeless people. She is the one tracing where Sayo's money is actually going. She goes to the Heritage Club's private card game, sits across from Sayo, beats him at his own table, and then looks him in the eye and calls him a destroyer funded by Pavel. She wants to make him angry enough to slip. He sends a truck to run her off the road. She sees it coming. She orchestrates her own accident with the help of her Opulentia contact and puts a trained body double in the hospital bed. From that moment, Shi-oh understands she is sharper than he ever gave her credit for, and that changes his entire approach. But Gum-ju is not the only one tightening the net. Inside the Dugo operation, Nam soon discovers that drug shipments move under a label, CTA, stamped on ordinary-looking goods. The drug lives inside jacket feathers, inside face masks, inside anything that passes through water during daily use. She and Hee-sik intercept a truck on a dark road, with Hee-sik dressed as a woman with car trouble, while Nam-soon slips out of the back with the jacket. They cut it open at the station and drop a single feather into a cup of water. It dissolves into the drug in seconds. This is Sayo's entire distribution model, hidden in a single feather. And before any of this, Nam-soon had already walked out of Sayo's office building carrying his entire desktop computer. She was under a white bedsheet, dressed as a ghost. All while his very large, very frustrated guard scrambled after her. She jumped out of a window, sat calmly on a bench outside, and waited for Hee-sik's car to pull up. The look on Young-tak's face when he saw the computer, instead of the high-tech operation he had been expecting, is one of the most purely funny moments in the entire story. There is also the night Madam Kim of the Heritage Club, trying to establish dominance. She offers Nam-soon a drink, telling her that working for Shi-oh requires someone who can hold their liquor. Nam-soon drinks the entire glass in one go. Kim watches and smiles, then says the drink was laced with a paralytic that will knock her out for hours. Then Nam-soon stands straight up and smiles back. Poison doesn't work on her. Kim's face in that moment is worth the entire episode. But Shi-oh isn't standing still while all of this happens. His team leader Dong-seok had accidentally tasted a trace of the drug from an evidence mask early in the investigation. By now he's deteriorating in secret, craving water constantly, his strength surging in ways that terrify even him. He wades into the ocean in the middle of the night, and it takes multiple men to drag him back out. He makes it home eventually, writes everything he knows into a brown notebook with shaking hands, and hides a USB drive inside. He places it on a shelf where Hee-sik will find it. Then he dies. Hee-sik finds the notebook. He cries over the body of his team leader. Then he stands up, picks up the notebook, and keeps going. Because that's exactly what Dong-seok left it there for. Nam-in, Nam-soon's younger brother, is losing a fight with one of Shi-oh's products, and doesn't even know he's in one. A woman came into the family cafe, smiled at him, and handed him diet pills. He took them without a second thought. By the time anyone understands what is happening, his veins are pulsing blue. He can't stop reaching for water. He is in a hospital bed, and the doctors are helpless because the drug leaves no trace in standard tests. Gum-ju puts 1 billion won in a suitcase. She drives it herself to a meeting with a woman called Red Heels, one of Sayo's street distributors, and trades it for 2 small vials of antidote. She carries them to the hospital herself. When Namin drinks the antidote and his color comes back and his eyes open, the entire family lets out a breath that has been sitting in their chests for days. They hold each other. Bongo, who had been sitting at that hospital bed, quietly certain that Gum-ju would choose justice over her own child, tells her she did well. It costs him something to say it. She receives it without making it a moment. That small exchange between 2 people who built a family together and then lost each other. Then lost their daughter and found her again, that quiet, difficult warmth between them, is the emotional backbone of everything else this story is trying to do. It's a reminder of what is actually at stake. Every time the camera returns to Shi-oh in his office, composed and calculating, he's not running an empire, he's running destruction through the bodies of people who never knew they were inside his business plan. Namin is one of thousands. Meanwhile, Jung-gun is conducting her own version of justice entirely. She moves a man's car with one hand after he's rude to her in a parking lot, reconsiders, and flips it completely upside down before walking away. She storms a scammer's hideout, knocks out both men inside, and carries them into a police station to be arrested. She falls quietly and completely in love with Jun-hee, the gentle barista at Namin's cafe, and pursues that love with the same focused intensity she applies to everything else. When Shio's people kidnap Jun-hee to use as leverage against her, she walks into the building and handles every single person inside. She walks out with Jun-hee beside her. He looks at her in the aftermath and asks her to move in with him. She says yes and invites him to finish their Netflix film from the other night. These two are completely genuine and the story is right to give them so much space. Namsoon, still undercover at Dugo, convinces Shio to take her to the secret mountain lab. She transfers the contents of his hidden phone to Hee-sik, who uses it to listen in on Shio's conversations with a Pavel contact named Byeon. That is when they hear the phrase Tsar Bomba for the first time. It is not a weapon, it is a death order. Pavel wants Shio gone. Shio finds out who she really is. One of his people sends him a video clip. Namsoon jumping from a burning building the night she found her mother. He watches it alone in his office. He watches the face he's been treating as his most valuable asset, as someone he'd been slowly and deliberately building toward trusting. And then, he sees Hwang Geum-ju's daughter looking back at him from the screen. He doesn't throw anything. He doesn't raise his voice. Something far colder settles into him and reorganizes everything from the ground up. He gets to Hwaja first. Hwaja started this story as a con artist. She pretended to be Namsoon to steal from Geum-ju, and she nearly succeeded, but Geum-ju gave her something she'd never been offered before. A real chance, a job, somewhere to live, a life she could call her own. Honestly, for the first time, she had turned herself around completely. She was doing well. She had earned every bit of it. Shio finds her. He tells her this is the cost of her lies. There is no rage in the way he says it, no theatrics, just the flat, clean delivery of a man who's made a decision and is following through on it the way you follow through on any ordinary task. That's what makes it so hard to watch. Then he uses her phone to send Namsoon a message. You're next. He's not operating in the shadows anymore. The prosecutor who'd been in his pocket has flipped and testified. There is a warrant for his arrest. The new commissioner general is moving against him. The machine Shio spent years constructing is cracking at every joint at once. So he ingests the drug, stops the commissioner's car with his bare hands, and walks through the security detail like they're furniture arranged in his way. He puts the commissioner on the ground and holds him there just long enough for the message to land. He's not running. He's reminding everyone that a warrant doesn't change who he is. The last move he makes is the most precise thing he's done in the entire story. He takes Namsoon's Mongolian adoptive mother off a street near a shopping area while Bongo's back is turned. He brings Namsoon to an abandoned warehouse and explains the situation without rushing. A bomb is inside a gift bag delivered to her mother. A sensor on a water bottle sitting directly in front of Namsoon will trigger it if she picks up the bottle within the hour. He's thought about every possible response she could have, and he's prepared for all of them. Then he hands her the drug. She takes it. And then, she's on the floor of a cold warehouse, screaming through pain that feels like something being torn loose from deep inside her, while Shio watches the CCTV feed calmly from his car outside in the dark. He has a thermos of coffee. He's not in a hurry. He genuinely believes he has already won. He's done everything correctly. She can't push through this pain. She can't reach the water. Her mother is walking through a city with a bomb she has no idea about. And the only person alive who could change any of this is on a concrete floor in a countdown that's already running. Here's what he didn't calculate. The three women in this family are connected in a way that only activates under the most extreme pressure. When one of them hits the edge of everything she has, the others feel it. Geum-ju has already been collapsing trying to force the bond, drinking from a street pipe on her knees with her hands shaking. Jung-gon, hours away at a mountain temple with Jun-hee, feels the pain move through the connection between them and understands in an instant what it means. She looks at a stone Buddha statue in the temple courtyard. It's the size of a small building. She tells Jun-hee she loves him. She tells him she might not come back from what she is about to do. Then, she lifts it. The energy that surges through all three women is immediate and absolute. Geum-ju's eyes snap open on the pavement. Namsoon's eyes open in the warehouse. She gets up, she walks to the door with the bomb strapped to it. She picks it up, she throws it into the sky. It detonates above the warehouse in a bloom of fire and light, and she walks out through the smoke like she owns every piece of the night surrounding her. Shio does not accept it. He ingests more of the drug and comes at her directly. He's fast and strong and pushed somewhere past the boundary of what a body is designed to endure. She throws a metal rod into him. He pulls it out of his own body. He keeps moving and doesn't slow. then just recalculates and keeps coming. Hee-seok arrives and Shi-oh disappears into the dark. But it's over. The antidote is found in refrigeration units inside the Dugo warehouse. Madam Kim is arrested. Secretary Yoon is also arrested. The full VIP client list, delivered by Red Heels who'd been quietly working as Hee-seok's mole this entire time, brings down everyone still standing. The entire network CEO built over a decade collapses at every connection simultaneously. He ends up at a boxing gym. It used to be an orphanage. The very building where he was first trained, first hardened, first made into something Pavel could point at the world. Bin finds him there, his childhood friend, the boy he pulled up from the ground in the dark woods and made a promise to. Bin was sent here specifically to kill him. He comes in with a gun and stands in front of the only person he ever trusted and raises it. He can't pull the trigger. Not because he is weak, because some part of him that Pavel was never fully able to reach still remembers the boy who reached back in the dark. He lowers the gun and hands it to Shi-oh instead. Shi-oh looks at the gun in his hand. He looks at Nam-soon and Hee-seok coming through the door. He says he wants to die with dignity. He puts the gun to his own head, and he pulls the trigger. The man who survived the orphanage, the Pavel camps, the drug he designed to exceed his own biology, the years of building an empire from nothing. He chooses this. Not capture, not negotiation, not the slow erosion of a trial. He dies in the building where his suffering started, in the place he bought and never truly left. Alone. Except for the friend who could not kill him and the woman who could not reach him in time. After everything is over, investigators find one more thing. Shi-oh had bought this building quietly, years ago, without telling anyone. It used to be the orphanage. He bought the place where he was broken. Maybe to own it, maybe because owning it was the only form of revenge that felt real. Maybe because no matter how many floors he built above it all these years, some part of him was always still standing in that room. Still a boy, still waiting for something that was never going to come. Nam-soon walks past with Hee-seok and says quietly that he must have been very lonely. She's right. That's the most devastating sentence in the entire story. The rest of the story moves the way life always does after something large and terrible finally ends. Jung-ju gets the antidote formula from Dr. Choi by threatening him and then offering him the Nobel Prize. She distributes it. She sues every remaining Dugo director. She goes on her own television station and makes clear she's not finished because Pavel is still operating and she has decided it is her next problem. Hee-seok's team is reinstated and honored. Nam-soon joins the police force officially and walks into her first day at the Drug Investigation Unit looking exactly like someone who has been waiting for this specific moment her whole life. Jung-gun wakes up in hospital to find Gyum-ju making extravagant promises about Junhee's honeymoon and calmly informs her she was just sleeping and expects every word honored. Guk-jong, who had spent a decade searching for Nam-soon in the mountains of Tibet and found monks instead, tells Junhee to go to Jung-gun and treat her well. The divorce moves forward. The family sits down together for the first time, all of them around the same table, and Bongo and Gum-ju exchange a small smile when Jung-gun tells them to get back together. Neither says anything about it. Then Gum-ju turns the conversation to Nam-soon's wedding, because Hee-seok had already asked, not with a ring or a speech. He was walking with Nam-soon and said out loud simply that he thinks he could be a good father. She knew exactly what he meant. She said yes before he finished the sentence. Both families meet. Everyone agrees to make it soon. And in the middle of all this warmth, Gum-ju gets a file from Opulentia. The photo inside is the face of No, Pavel's most ruthless operative who had been inside Korea this entire time. She stares at it. It is Bread Song, the man who had been circling the investigation from the very beginning, flirting with every woman in Gangnam and claiming to be a harmless opportunist with a gift for finance. He'd vanished before anyone could move on him. His associate tells Gum-ju he left a note that reads, "Be merciful like Paul." After the credits, Bread Song is on a boat on open water. Everyone else on the boat is dead. The story is not over. It just changed shape. He lived as a giant. He built an empire out of suffering, his own and everyone else's. He turned addiction into profit and loyalty into leverage and walked through the world as if consequences were just a weather event. Something that only happened to other people, in other cities, in lives less carefully constructed than his. And at the end, he died alone. A man betrayed by the only light he ever let into his dark world. So, was he a monster who got exactly what he deserved, or something more complicated than that? Let me know what you think in the comments. And that wraps up our recap of Strong Girl Nam-soon. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows. I'll see you in the next one.